One of the biggest pain points that I'm hearing from customer experience leaders that I talk to is that they really find it so frustrating on the fact that turning insight into action, that seems to be one of the biggest challenges right now. And it's really frustrating, right? You know, your team have worked so hard, you've looked at all the different data, you've brought it together, you've created some really compelling insights that kind of show where the experience isn't working. And you share this and you meet with different parts of the business, but nothing happens. And it does feel like a bit of a doom loop. You're just going round in circles time and time again. And I know what it's like. I've been there myself, and it is incredibly frustrating. But there is always things you can do to make it better. And I want to share a tool called the Customerexperience Sprint, which is basically 4 sprints. And I'm going to talk through each one of those now, but its main purpose is to kind of be that vehicle from insight into action. And it's worked with different clients that I've worked with over the last couple of years or so, and I want to share it with you today, and hopefully it can be helpful for you, and hopefully it can just be a little bit easier for you then to turn all that insight into actual action and hopefully impact as well. So let's start with sprint 1, which is called evidence. And I've put a time frame here of 1 to 2 weeks, but it really depends on how fast your organization works. It also depends on how big the thing that you're working on. But I've given a time frame for each of the sprints just so you can see the ratio of how much time to spend on each sprint. So sprint 1, evidence, and this sprint is all about proving why the issue matters from both a customer and business point of view. So what is the customer pain point? And really spend time defining the problem. How big is it? But also, what is the cost and the risk to the organization if this pain point continues? And most teams and organizations skip this step. They rush to solutions, right? And it's easy to do. I've been there myself, and it's just easy to go straight to the solution and start thinking about that. But you've got to spend time in the trenches. You've got to spend time chewing over the problem. So if you don't define the problem, you end up also solving the wrong one. So slow down and get your problem definition right. So once you've finished sprint 1, evidence, you're now ready for sprint 2, which is called the current state. And this is about spending about double the time you did on sprint 1. So I've put here kind of 2 to 4 weeks. And here you bring the evidence to life. You kind of map what happens today. You can use stories and use cases and just examples to really illustrate what the problem actually is. Things like customer journey mapping work really well because I think it kind of shows it from that end-to-end point of view. And it really helps bringing in customer personas as well. Don't just talk about customers in its broad sense, really bring them to life and give them names. And also, don't do this in silo. Engage with the business, share what you're seeing, do a quick roadshow, host an online session, whatever works for your business. But make sure people can input into this, but also understand what you found. Okay, and then you move on to sprint 3 called future design. And this is hands down my favorite sprint. And this is where you flip your thinking and start to design the future experience. This is about removing the pain points, making sure you're meeting the actual needs of the customer, and also be bold. And sometimes what I do is I design 2 versions, a realistic future design that you can move into maybe in the next year or so, and then a future design that really is quite bold, that stretches kind of where you are now into real blue sky thinking. And this for me is all about reverse engineering, right? It's about designing the future and then being able to reverse engineer from where you are now, from where you want to be to where you are now. And just like before, bring the business with you. I can't say this more. It's so important to engage people, to engage the business, to get their input. It's not about your design. You shouldn't be on your own. You shouldn't be in a little team in a kind of dark room. Be visible, be out and about, and make sure it's a kind of co-designed piece of work that everyone feels part of. And the final sprint, sprint 4, which is called Act and Measure. And this is where you actually deliver the change. You actually implement what you're going to be doing. And if you've engaged properly during sprint 1 and 2, this step is so much easier. But if you haven't engaged the business, this is where most organizations find it really hard to actually implement the change because they haven't brought people on the journey with them. So when you go live, it's great. And obviously you're implementing a change to a process or a system or a way of working, but it's so important to measure that. Did you actually remove the pain point? Did it actually have the intended impact? And because sometimes it's so easy to fix something over here, but it can create problems downstream. So you have to make sure you've actually improved the experience. So that is my custom experience sprint framework. I really hope it has been useful. And just give it a try. It's, as I said, a really, really handy vehicle that kind of gets you from that insight place to that kind of action and a kind of impact place. Remember, it's all about sprint 1, which is around evidence. Sprint 2 is around current state. Sprint 3 is around that kind of future design. And then the final sprint is all about act and implement those changes and measure the impact.